Hello, everyone. Welcome to the launch party of the CreateVT Action Plan. I'm so thrilled to have you all joining us today. My name is Jody Freed. I'm the Executive Director of Catamount Arts and the Chair of the Vermont Creative Network Steering Team. As we're welcoming folks into the virtual waiting room, I invite you to introduce yourselves in chat. Please tell us your name and where you are from. And if you'd like, please consider this creative prompt. Tell us 3 things that you create. We'll drop this prompt into chat as well. Some accessibility logistics, specifically closed captioning. This event is being live captioned by white coat captioning. To view the captions during the event, click on the closed caption button at the bottom of the Zoom screen, then click on the show subtitles option to view the captions on your screen. You may also view a full page text of the captions by clicking on the link that is being posted in the chat box below. This will open the captions in a separate browser for you to view. I know many of you have become Zoom experts at this point, but just a few other reminders. We will be hearing from many different people today, some of whom will be sharing images as well. So for best viewing experience, you may want to adjust the setting on your computer or device to show speaker view instead of gallery view. You can find this setting in the top right-hand corner of your Zoom screen. This is being recorded and will be shared after the event. We'll ask that you keep yourself muted unless you are speaking to avoid background noise. And finally, please feel free to use the chat function to let organizers know directly if you run into any technical difficulties. The chat and mute functions can both be found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So I would like to begin today with a land acknowledgement. Vermont is the traditional unsurrendered territory of the Abenaki people, one of 5 Wabanaki nations who have had a continuous presence here since time immemorial. The Vermont Arts Council learned from Abenaki elders that in Abenaki, Waban is the white flickering light in the sky, and Aki is the word for land. So the Wabanaki are the people of the Dawn Land. We acknowledge their ancestors, their history, and their continuing creative presence today. We have a jam-packed lineup. We'll be hearing from many inspiring creatives and creative sector champions today. We're posting the agenda in the chat now. We launched the plan today for public comment and invite your input and thoughts about the plan in the coming weeks. There will be time at the end of the event for short rounds of speed networking, as we had in the fall. And stay tuned for further virtual events and opportunities this summer and fall to dig in deeper to the plan and connect with others who are interested in moving this work forward. We could not have completed this project without our generous funders. We're so grateful for their support and their confidence in us. Thank you to James Trust, the Wyndham Foundation, Vermont's Agency of Commerce and Community Development, the National Life Foundation, and the Ruth and Peter Metz Foundation. Our research on the Northeast Kingdom, which was a foundation for this project, was funded by the US Department of Agriculture and the Vermont Community Foundation. The Community Foundation also provided seed funding when the Creative Network was established 5 years ago. So we wouldn't be here without them. I'd also like to thank our planning and facilitation team, David Hohenschow, Rebecca Sanborn-Stone, and Shanta Lee Gander. My fellow Vermont Creative Network steering team members and zone agents, Amy Cunningham, Network Coordinator, Vermont Arts Council Board and staff, Mount Auburn Associates, who directed the research portion of this project, with partners Melissa Levy, Stuart Rosenfeld, and Michael King. The Champlain College students who designed the new VCN logo, and the UVM students who assisted in planning efforts last spring. And finally, you, everyone who participated in a focus group, survey, or idea jam. Creativity is everywhere in Vermont, in the innovation of technology entrepreneurs, and in the ingenuity of musicians finding their way to perform during a pandemic. We see creativity at farmers markets and heritage events, in classrooms and boardrooms, on stage and on street corners, in galleries and in growing businesses. And most importantly, we see creativity driving, inspiring, and catalyzing a bold new future for Vermont. Vermont's creative sector already provides many benefits to the state. Scaling it up and amplifying the sector will, in turn, scale and amplify the benefits it provides. The building blocks for a thriving creative sector are here, but it won't materialize on its own. Vermont needs a coordinated, collaborative approach to moving the sector forward. This plan aims to do that and more. This plan is simultaneously a milestone, a roadmap, and a celebration of creativity in the Green Mountain State. We believe that arts, culture, and creativity are just as essential to Vermont's future as roads, bridges, and broadband. Treating arts, culture, and creativity as essential infrastructure means we will see corresponding increases in statewide investment and resources, enabling policies, and education regarding the creative sector. We envision a future where everyone, from community members to state leaders, recognize the essential nature of the creative sector and invest in it accordingly. Thank you. And at this point, I'll turn things over to Vermont Creative Network Coordinator, Amy Cunningham. Amy?
Hi, thank you so much, Jody, for those remarks and for everything you do for the creative sector in Vermont. And thanks to everyone for being here. And I'm loving seeing the introductions from everyone in the chat. Keep them coming and tell us what you create. There's some really fun things in that chat. I'm pleased to present William Fortune, who is a multidisciplinary, multi-talented creative. He is a director, producer, acrobat, stuntman, poet, just to name a few things. He's called Brattleboro his home since 1998. And William participated in many of our fall visioning and networking sessions, and he was one of hundreds of enthusiastic participants who helped shape this plan. During one of those sessions, William wrote and shared a short poem about the process in that meeting, and we loved it, and it stuck with us. And so we thought it was fitting to have him kick off this launch with that same poem. William, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I also want to just express my gratitude to the ancestors who, through them, I have gained the use of my words and my art. With many minds, we come together. With words, we share a vision. Together, one state. We serve each other. We fill the plate. This is a time of need as we come together, our souls to feed. With open minds, with open hearts, we unite in cause to share our art. Thank you.
Wonderful, William, thank you so much. Next up, we have remarks from several elected leaders and creative sector champions. And I'm really thrilled that our Congressman Peter Welch could join us this afternoon. As many of you know, Congressman Welch is a longtime supporter of the creative sector. Notably, last year, he introduced the Save Our Stages bill, which became the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant Program, offering relief to performing arts venues and organizations. Congressman Welch, we really appreciate you being here during such a busy time. I'll turn it over to you.
Amy, thank you very much. I am really thrilled to be with you. And Jody, thank you for your remarks. And William, thank you for that beautiful, beautiful poem. I want to just say a couple of things. First of all, think about how many people are on this call. We're pushing up to 200 people. And what does it reflect? It reflects how vital it is that we have the creative arts in every part of our state. And you know, a lot of times when we talk about the arts now and we're into marketing mode, we talk about how it actually helps the economy. And that's true because it brings people to downtown, it brings people to artistic events. Younger people especially, but older people definitely want to be in a vibrant community, and the arts are the center of that. But with COVID, I want to tell you something else. It's good for the soul. I mean, we are in this transition now from total lockdown to the real opportunity that we're going to be back to normal at some point. And what I'm seeing with so many of us is we're struggling to make sense of what it is we've been through. And what I'm getting a sense of too, just as personally, as well as talking to my friends and family, it's like we have to relearn how we socialize and how we interact. And we also need help with one another to interpret this experience that we've been in that has been really traumatic in varying ways, depending on what your circumstances were, but in universal ways with the anxiety that has been part of COVID and how whatever your routines were in early March of 2020, they're totally transformed from what they are in May of 2021. And isn't it the work of the artistic endeavor to help us understand our world through all forms of artistic expression? So sure, there's economic benefits with a vibrant art scene, but there's real spiritual benefits as well. I mean, it's the challenge of an artist for an artist to help us understand the world that we are walking through together. So the arts have never been more important. But secondly, on that question of the economy, it really does make a difference. People want to live in active, vibrant communities. And we see that people are attracted when there's a lively artistic bond and scene in our communities. So I am really happy that we were able to get some focus on this with the Save Our Stages legislation that I sponsored in the House. It became, as Amy said, a new bill, but it's got money in it. And the SBA took a while to draft the regulations, but they're out now, and our artistic communities can now apply, hopefully, to get some economic relief. And our artistic venues really need it, because all of these venues where people show up depend to some extent on contributions, but also on ticket sales. And many of our artistic venues are going to be the last to open, and we really can't safely go there until we're safe from COVID. But the Congress did put significant money in the National Endowment for the Humanities and the National Endowment for the Arts. You know, last year in the relief packages that we passed, it was $75 million for NEH and NEA. This year in the American Rescue Package, it was $135 million each, almost doubling the support. And that's not enough, I understand, but it's a real reflection that there is an awareness among members of Congress, certainly Patrick, Bernie, and me, that this is money well spent. And at the end of the day, we want to have a successful transition from COVID back to communities that are vibrant. So the focus on the arts is about not just saving individuals, it's about saving our downtowns, saving our rural communities, so that they're vibrant places and they survive COVID as well as each of us as individuals survive COVID. So Amy, thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and good luck to all of you in your meeting today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Congressman Welch. We really appreciate those inspiring words and for you making time for us today. Next up, we have Diane Derby, who's the field representative for Senator Patrick Leahy. Diane, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Congressman Welch, for being with us. It's great to see you. On behalf of Senator Leahy, he's on his way back to Vermont as I speak. He's probably just getting off the plane about now. Just want to thank the Vermont Arts Council and all of you who have helped in this great effort that's now CreateVT. Senator Leahy certainly understands and appreciates the importance of the creative sector and all the benefits that we all derive from the work you all do. As chairman of Senate Appropriations Committee, he'll do all that he can to support you and to push the effort forward on this marketing and you know, upping the ante in terms of the creative economy in Vermont. So please know that he's with you all the way. It's been great to see that 5 years now, I think, since the Vermont Creative Network was first conceived, the vision and ideas have taken true shape. And since that gathering a few years back at Vermont College of Fine Arts, and through your critical research and data points, along with statewide convenings, we all were there for the idea jams. It's really been fun. And it's your energy and your hard work have brought us to this point, and it's really exciting. So I imagine for some of you, it also might be a little daunting because we know this year presented enormous challenges in so many different ways. Each is unique as the work you all do. So the timing for this effort couldn't be more critical. I have a great job that allows me to get out and visit your venues and learn about your work. And it's really a highlight of what I do. And I miss seeing you all. And those of you I don't know and haven't seen, I hope to catch up with you. I turn around and give the feedback to Senator Leahy and to my colleagues in DC so that we know we can match the federal support with your needs here in Vermont. And much of that feedback I also share based on my conversations with Karen and Amy at the Arts Council. And I can tell you that, you know, just everyone who's here today, there are no better advocates for your interests than Karen and Amy. So Senator Leahy will learn about this effort and he'll do all that he can to support CreateVT, and Vermont will be on the national map as the creative state. So thanks for having me join you, and please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thanks.
Thank you, Diane. That was wonderful. We really appreciate it. Vermont is indeed going to be on the map as the creative state. And helping us get there is Heather Pelham, representing the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. Heather serves as the Commissioner of Tourism and Marketing. Heather, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Amy. And thank you for the chance to say a few words. I'll keep it brief if I can. On behalf of Secretary Curley and the entire Agency of Commerce and Community Development, I really couldn't be more pleased to add my voice of welcome and to invite everyone to get comfortable as there's so much to share and celebrate today. And thank you to everyone who has contributed to this incredible body of work and to the work and efforts that we'll continue we'll do together to make this come to life. The mission of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development is fairly simple. It's to help Vermonters improve their quality of life and build strong communities. And if I could just pick up on some of the comments we've already heard, this past year was clearly like no other. And as we reflect, I think we can easily recognize that that ability of each of us to tap into our own creativity, ingenuity, and passion is really what helped us to find the solutions together, I would say, that supported our neighbors, businesses, and communities through the challenges of the past year. And continuing that work and to do everything we can to foster innovation and creative solutions will clearly be one of the keys to our future success, both economically and as individual Vermonters. That point just hasn't been any clearer to me today than it has been before. Our work at the agency encompasses and intersects with the creative sector on many levels. And that would include our work on community development to support an entrepreneurial ecosystem that will provide access to technical assistance, to capital, to support creative enterprises of all kinds, to help us lead on climate technology or whatever other solutions may be keys to the future. That through the work of our community development team on creative placemaking, through programs like Better Places, or just supporting investment in our downtowns and village centers in general. All the ways that we can support thriving communities as cultural and economic hubs. And then our work to promote and market Vermont, both to encourage visitors to share in our great state, but also encourage businesses to look to Vermont for where and how that they will make a difference, and hopefully to recruit and inspire some new residents as well. As I think about everybody gathered here today, I hope that we may all be able to agree that Vermont's creative spirit is central to our brand. And that brand is one that every one of us has a part in shaping, just as we have a part in our collective future. So I'm thrilled and excited that this plan that we're here to talk about today with that, the creative sector will be leading the way. And so with that, I can't wait to hear what else is to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Really appreciate your time. So it's been 5 years almost to the day since the Vermont Creative Network was officially established by the Vermont legislature. And so I'm thrilled to have three powerful and inspiring leaders from the legislature here. And I will have next up, I'm happy to introduce Representative Sarah Coffey from Guilford and Vernon. Hi, Sarah. Thank you.
Hi. Well, it's terrific to be here today. It's a really honor to speak and today and to be with you in this virtual space. My only wish is that we could all be here together. And I just wanted to thank you, Amy and Karen Middleman, for your exceptional leadership at the Arts Council. It's been extraordinary, and to also the leadership of the zone leaders in the Vermont Creative Network, representing regions across our state. And I just want to acknowledge and offer my gratitude to Congressman Welch and Senator Leahy and our federal delegation for the strong advocacy and support of the creative sector and the arts in particular. We know that having been a former arts leader running an arts organization myself, when we first got our first National Endowment for the Arts grant, our Diane Derby was one of the first people to call me to congratulate me on behalf of the senator, and Congressman Welch's work, especially this last year, but always with this Save Our Stages grant, has been really exceptional in leading our nation this way. So I have a lot of gratitude, and I'm also really quite thrilled at the way that the Arts Council and the Agency of Commerce and Community Development have been working together, and to Heather Pelham for all of her efforts to integrate the creative sector into Vermont's brand. It's really, really exciting to see. And I'm pleased to be here today with my colleagues from the Vermont Senate as we continue to work together in the Vermont Assembly to build support for this important sector. And as someone who worked in the performing arts field for nearly 25 years and ran a community-based arts organization for 13 of those years in Vermont, I've seen firsthand of the power of and the possibility of the arts. We know that when children who participate in the arts in our schools, they have better educational outcomes. We've seen investments in the creative sector attract businesses, create jobs, promote tourism, and increase tax revenues, while also promoting community cohesion. And this is borne out by the data that the Arts Council and the Vermont Creative Network have shared with us, that back in 2018, the creative industries provided over 40,000 jobs here in our state, or 9.3% of all employment, which added $1 billion in value to the Vermont economy and 3.2% of the state GDP. And this income, we know that these are our figures from before the pandemic, but we know that through lots of national reports, including the most really a study that I was very excited about from the National Governors Association that focused on the arts and our rural prosperity and how integral the arts are to rural prosperity and vitality. Yet with all these good things, we know how challenging it can be to be an artist or to run an arts organization in Vermont. Our economy of scale and the geography and our distance from each other can be challenging as our small communities, but those are also some of our greatest strengths. And I'm excited to be here today to join you, because I think this action plan that we're going to be hearing more about is really key to our continued path forward. We've seen with the pandemic that how cultural organizations have responded. They've mobilized live streaming concerts and events, performances, film watching parties, and family arts activities that have helped ease the isolation and the fear that many of our children and older Vermonters more vulnerable Vermonters have experienced. Artists and arts organizations, the ones that can survive this crisis, will continue to be there to enable our communities to move forward when the worst is behind us. And so we must help this effort. As we did with the rural electrification project and the way we're thinking about rural broadband, so must we invest in the rural infrastructure for the creative sector. And we all have a role to play. I'm so proud of the work that we did last year in the Vermont Assembly to build and use some of our Corona relief funds, $5 million, to support the creative arts sector. We did that together with the advocacy of the Vermont Arts Council and my colleagues in the House and Senate. And now I'm very excited. I'm cautiously optimistic that we will be seeing robust support for the Better Places program, which is a really beautiful collaboration that came out of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, along with the Vermont Arts Council, AARP, the Vermont Preservation Trust, and the Vermont Community Foundation. And I was proud to be the lead sponsor of that legislation. And it's looking promising that will come across the finish line. So in closing, I want to say that Vermont's creative sector is uniquely positioned to take a strong role in not only rebuilding our economy, but in re-envisioning our economy that is resilient and vibrant, one that brings vitality to our downtowns and village centers, provides good and secure jobs and successful businesses, and also address environmental and social concerns, which are integral to the infrastructure of our communities. So as we did in the wake of Hurricane Irene, let's build resilience into our recovery, this time through the arts and with the arts. So I'm excited to be here today to join hands, to collaborate, advocate, rebuild, and invest in this collective work. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak and to be part of this wonderful event.
Here, here. Thank you, Sarah. It's been a busy time in the virtual State House, and so it means a lot that you could make some time for us. And I'm very pleased that we've got two amazing creative champions from the Senate side here. So next up, I am really pleased to introduce Senator Keisha Rahm, representing Chittenden County. Oh, here we've got actually Senator Becca Ballot. We'll flip the order because here she is popping up on my screen.
Amy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All good? Should I turn it up?
Is that Senator Ballot I'm hearing?
Yes, Senator Ballot.
Loud and
Okay.
Clear.
Okay,
Take it
great.
away.
So good afternoon, all. I'm Becca Ballot. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a senator from Windham County, and I'm the president pro tem of the Senate. And I am so pleased to be here today for the public launch of the CreateVT action plan. It's exciting, it's hopeful, and it's coming at the exact right time. We're all about to experience a new awakening, an unfolding, a vibrant and expansive burst of creativity. I've been thinking about it as a sort of great reanimation, a rededication to creative endeavors of all kinds across our state. After 4 very dark years under the previous administration, and after an incredibly tough, painful year of this global pandemic, this is the time when we are starved for this work, this call to action. So thank you to everyone who had a hand in pulling this action plan together. I see it as a creative roadmap for our state, and it is so needed. I know so many of us have felt confined and restricted by political circumstances, the economic downturn, and the public health emergency. So many arts venues have been shuttered, performance spaces have had to close, artists and creatives across the state have felt scared and anxious about what the future holds for them. So what I want this roadmap to reanimate us. Let us see the possibilities where before, just a few months ago, we saw limitations. It can be a path out of this feeling tight and small and self-protective if we are brave enough to allow ourselves to be hopeful. So creative action does many things for us. I know you know this. It can challenge norms, it can shift our perspectives, it can change our thinking about ideas, both large and small. But what I don't want us to forget today is that creative energy, creative action also delights us and offers us a lightness of spirit. So I want to give you an example, very small example. I live in a neighborhood here in Brattleboro with my spouse, 2 children, and a very rambunctious Labradoodle. And 2 years ago, my wife and I decided we need a little bit bigger space for our brood. And she's a healthcare attorney, and she's very good at her work, but it's not really what animates her. Her great loves are singing opera and studying aerial fabric. And for several years, we've been searching for a little bit bigger house with a little bit more land so that she could offer, so she could have for herself a practice room and a place for her aerial rig. We searched and we searched, and we actually finally gave up. And instead, we bought an aerial rig, and she set it up in our extremely tiny backyard. We live in town, so it's a very small in-town lot. We have houses all around us, and her aerial rig is wedged between our wood pile, a play structure, and an aging apple tree. And our neighbor's windows look down on her performance space. And I can't tell you how much joy this rig has brought to my wife and to our neighbors. I want you to picture it. The fabric is this bold purple, and it flutters in the wind, and its color is so striking against the backdrop of the maple trees, which serve as a canopy. And our immediate neighbors have told us how wonderful it is to watch Elizabeth out on her aerial rig each day. But perhaps even more delightful is the reactions that we've had from dog walkers, from moms and dads strolling with their kids, from cars that drive by and pause to watch. Yeah, it brings joy and delight to see her up there doing that crazy thing, but it also gives permission to others to pursue creative endeavors, to embrace the unconventional. And that's what I want this action plan to do for all of us as Vermonters, to give us, quite simply, permission not to play small, not to be tentative or shy or full of self-doubt. Let this plan give us all permission to reanimate ourselves and each other and ignite all sorts of creative projects in our dynamic state. We are only limited by our spirit and imagination, and I know we have no shortage of either. So I can't wait to see what this next year holds for all of us. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. I'm so excited about this project.
Senator Ballot, thank you so much. You're going to have to give us a picture of that. I've got a visual image, but we want to see those aerial rings. That's fantastic.
Happy to do that.
And, embrace the unconventional and permission not to play small. That's really terrific, Senator. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great. And so last but not least in our lineup of remarks is Senator Keisha Rahm from Chittenden County. Senator Rahm, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. And I was feeling like it was a little easier to be bookended by my other wonderful colleagues who are incredible champions, but Senator Ballot is incredibly busy and just doing an amazing job as our pro tem. So it's just an honor to be with her and with Representative Coffey, who was synonymous with support for the arts before becoming a legislator, and certainly has really brought that perspective and power. And it's a tremendous honor to work with both of them. This is a lot of legislators, and I just love this invitation for us to be here because that, and as Senator Ballot said, a reanimation, a reinvigoration. For me, it's an invitation and that permission, as she said, to reground ourselves. And as we get toward the end of the legislative session, it's really hard to think about what do we create? What are we actually creating this session? And, I would say certainly for me, it's opportunity, well-being, connection is what we try to put into the budget and our services and the work that we do. But it's also a lot of good trouble. And you know what, as my colleagues will tell you, I don't even care if you call what I do good trouble. I'm okay with just trouble. And so, I think that's a sort of spirit that is so well embodied in the arts. And, I've been thinking too, as we talk about what do we create, we sometimes don't get to share this as much in the public sphere, but a lot of us, for us, our first love, our survival, our way of being is built off of the arts as well. You know, my first love was actually singing. And I often tell people public speaking is so much easier if you've ever tried to get up and sing in front of people. And when I was a student at UVM, there was another person in the Latin jazz ensemble. I sang and she played the flute, and her name was Rachel Weston. And the same year, she became the legislator for the Old North End of Burlington. This was 2006. And from that moment on, she encouraged me to run for the legislature as well, which is how I became a legislator at the age of 22 out of Burlington. And so the arts gave us, you know, some of the only legislators in their 20s in the last decade. And the arts are so much of what brings us together. And I think what's, you know, what I wanted to share uniquely is that, and Bill Fortune, you know, always does an incredible job of articulating this as well, is so often the creative energy of people of color and marginalized people is appropriated or taken from them or marginalized or not recognized. And so, you know, we often have to fight to be recognized as artists, or, you know, even more so than other folks' parents. You know, for me growing up in an Indian household, you know, it was, you absolutely can't go to music school. You can't go to the Hollywood Musicians Institute. Absolutely not, you know. And then the only, you know, funny thing for me was when I won a seat in the legislature, I told my grandmother, who immigrated from India and lived with us growing up, I said, you know, Dottie G, I became the youngest legislator in Vermont. And she said, oh, you were always such a good singer. Couldn't you do that instead? So there are cultures who really appreciate the arts a lot more than politics, and I have not forgotten that. And, you know, so it's just a privilege to celebrate with you. What I really want to lift up is the process of getting to this day, and, you know, the people that you've engaged, the work you did, you know, even including me in a very busy time in the legislature. I felt really heard and validated, adding comments or, you know, giving input to this planning process and this visioning process. And often I'll look at the board of directors or the steering committee and think, oh my gosh, please let there be one person of color, one person whose name I recognize. And it was just an incredible, diverse, inclusive range of people. You know, I didn't feel like I had to be that one voice to say what is actually going on. And it's reflected in what you've produced and how much intention has gone into it, how much of an invitation it is to the whole state, and how much it recognizes the harm we have to repair from this pandemic, from the, you know, the important but challenging racial reckoning we're having in this country. And even when we look at ourselves, the ways that we may have intentionally or unintentionally most of the time shut BIPOC Vermonters and marginalized people out of the feeling of being an artist, having their public art displayed, having their art celebrated. We're so much in a space of trying to change course and to, you know, really rebuild the invitation to who should see themselves as a creator and an artist. And I just appreciate you all and being able to be on that journey with you. We'll continue to do our part in the legislature. But, you know, I really think you're creating a lot of new space for the unheard and those who need to be healed and made whole and uplifted through the arts. So just appreciating you and happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Senator Rahm. That was wonderful. I really appreciate it. Again, I know this is it's the finish line over in the virtual State House. So thanks again for making time for us. I am thrilled to turn it over to Rebecca Sanborn-Stone, who has been the very best partner in crime, facilitator, and she and David Hohenshaw have led these facilitation sessions and these efforts. And Rebecca is going to present the big reveal. So Rebecca, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Amy. Let me pull up some slides for you all. On behalf of Dave Hohenshaw and I, it is such an honor to be here. It has been such an honor and pleasure to be working with all of you throughout this planning process. Think of all the plans we've done over the years at community workshops. This is by far the most fun and creative we have ever had the honor to work with. So we're thrilled to be here today to launch the CreateVT action plan. It's probably not a moment any of us would have anticipated. To be honest, when the Creative Network launched 5 years ago, or the research process launched 3 years ago, I don't think anyone could have anticipated this time. This is a moment of unprecedented challenge for Vermont and the creative sector. On top of all these challenges that we face and faced long before COVID-19, we have this big one that has landed. A national study last year showed that fully a third of creative sector jobs across the country were lost just last spring, thanks to COVID-19. Even before that happened, we knew that Vermont's creative sector needed help and needed support. National data shows that for independent Vermont creatives, only about half the amount of income comes in as it does for peers across the country. And when we look at the growth rate of Vermont's creative sector employment, it's only about half the rate of growth of the creative sector nationally. But this is also a moment of unprecedented opportunity, something we could not have foreseen even a year ago when we really began digging into this creative sector planning process. There is so much innovation and creativity and positive spirit coming out of every corner of Vermont these days. And on top of all of those little things, the little innovations, the bright spots and the creativity, we see major opportunities right now. Over the last year, the Vermont Arts Council has issued 5 times the number of grants to creative enterprises and businesses and individuals that they have done in past years. If we look at national data, we know that for every $1 invested in federal arts funding, an additional $9 are leveraged from other funders and investors. The power of investment in the creativity in the creative sector is quite remarkable. And as we look ahead to what's coming down the pike in Vermont, potentially $2.7 billion in funding, if we think about what could happen if we invested that in the creative sector, the possibilities are truly amazing. With all of this context, the challenges and the opportunities, it's clear looking forward that this is a moment Vermont's creative sector was made for. Our creative moment is now. This is the moment for creativity in Vermont to thrive. 41,000 people work in creative jobs in this state, and the sector is hit harder than most. If Vermont is going to thrive coming out of COVID-19, the creative sector must thrive. This is a moment for creativity to grow. The creative sector is one of the world's fastest growing sector, but as I mentioned, it's lagging behind here in Vermont. If Vermont's economy is going to grow, the creative sector must grow. And last, we've just heard so many people say eloquently that this is a moment for creativity to lead. Whether it's COVID-19 recovery, addressing racism, addressing climate change, or any other problem, the creative sector is uniquely poised to carry us forward with innovative solutions, creative people. Creativity can heal, it can inspire, it can build, and it can solve problems. With all of this in mind, this is a remarkable moment to be releasing CreateVT, Vermont's first action plan for the creative sector. It builds on remarkable research that Mount Auburn Associates and team initiated and released in 2019, Vermont's first comprehensive study of what the creative sector is, who it includes, and how large and impactful it is. So to set the stage, let me share a few data points with you. And first, a definition. When we say creative sector, we mean the collective enterprises, organizations, and individuals whose products and services are rooted in artistic and creative content. We're talking about 41,000 jobs in Vermont, which is 9.3% of all of Vermont's employment. We hear a lot about artists and the inspirational power of the arts, but Vermont's creative sector is much broader than that. Of those 41,000 jobs, a full 50% are not artists and people who are doing creative work, but it's the people who are supporting that creative work in our creative enterprises. It's the custodians who are cleaning the theater after the show. It's the prep cooks who are chopping vegetables to support farm-to-table restaurants and specialty foods. It's the people who are making our enterprises and operations run and work smoothly day in and day out. Another 26% are creative workers, but in other industries. These are graphic designers who work in retail. These are marketers. These are people who are bringing creativity into every other sector in Vermont and making sure that the power of creativity is lifting up our economy. And 24% are what we often think of in terms of creatives, people doing creative work, bringing creative thinking. But they're in a whole range of industries, not just visual arts and performing arts and the fields that come to mind most often. Mount Auburn's study revealed that Vermont's creative sector is big and it's diverse and it is dynamic. When we look at the number of jobs in each of the different segments that comprise our sector, it's actually design and specialty foods that account for the greatest number of people working in this field. When we look at how it's spread around the state, we see that Vermont's creative sector is growing everywhere. Each of these segments is growing across the state, but that growth is not necessarily even. A big challenge as we look ahead is thinking about how we can rally support for every one of these creative segments, every type of creative worker, and every corner of the state. With that, I bring you to our process. Mount Auburn Associates completed their research in 2019. Dave and I had the pleasure of jumping on board to take that research and carry it forward and say that now we know how big and how impactful the creative sector is and how much potential we have to drive forward the state. What is our vision for doing that? And so many of you joined us for exciting events last fall, even though we couldn't gather in person, the opportunity to get online and network using speed networking to share our creative visions, and you're seeing many of them here. So many of you helped shape those thousands of ideas and individual visions into one vision and into a set of goals and strategies, and now into a plan to carry it forward. Here is that one vision for Vermont's creative future. We believe that creativity is essential to the cultural and economic vitality of Vermont. In our vision, arts, culture, and creativity are essential Vermont infrastructure. Vermont communities thrive through creative expression and enterprises. And creative enterprises and individuals succeed in a diverse, connected, and equitable environment. Our process carried this vision forward to create 9 goals and many, many strategies. In that first theme around essential infrastructure, we have 3 major goals. The first is to develop resources to support the creative sector. That means funding specifically for creative enterprises. It means ensuring that access to funding is equitable across the state and that we addressed past inequities in the system, and that we continue collecting and building on the data that makes the case for further investments. It's about education from cradle to grave, not just school curriculum, but ensuring that we have career pipelines, mentorship opportunities, professional development opportunities for people in the creative sector, and for Vermonters at large to build an appreciation for creativity, arts, and culture. And it's about policy, making sure that our policies support and encourage creative sector activities from the state level on down to individual communities. Actions are things like developing an agenda for the creative sector every year, building capacity for advocacy among creative sector members, and developing a communications toolkit and messaging to help carry us forward. For our second vision theme, we have 3 more goals. Developing local creativity in every form imaginable, ensuring that we have funding and resources to support performances and public art and murals and local foods and everything you can think of. Developing the spaces and infrastructure that allow those things to happen and allow people to connect and create. And ensuring that we have resources available locally for people and businesses and organizations that want to do creative work. Our second goal is around leadership, making sure that we are building strong creative sector leaders at every level. developing advocacy training to help creative sector members make the case for further investments in creative work, developing leaders across the full spectrum of races, colors, ages, genders, and backgrounds in Vermont, and making sure that all of our creative organizations and agencies across the state can seriously address equity and inclusion and accessibility. The last goal in this theme is around collaborations. We know that the creative sector is strong by itself, but it is even stronger when we build collaborations across disciplines and sectors. This is about making sure that the creative sector can work with recreation and tourism and foods and education and bring creativity to those areas while using the power of those economic sectors to lift up creativity. It's about outreach. It's about developing and sharing successful models to show that these cross-sector collaborations truly do work. And our final set of goals is around supporting individual creative people and businesses and enterprises. It's about developing the supports that people and individuals need to have successful careers and lives as creative people here in Vermont. That means business resources, digital capacity building, especially technical assistance as we emerge from COVID-19, and many creative enterprises need to reinvent themselves for this brave new world. It's about advocacy around livability, making sure that people everywhere in Vermont can find affordable housing, affordable healthcare, and all the resources they need to thrive here. And it is very specifically around COVID-19 support, making sure that creative enterprises and people have access to the resources they need to recover from this unprecedented time and have a share of the incredible resources that are coming down the pipeline to lead Vermont out of it. It's about network building, which is a theme we heard over and over again this fall. Creatives have the power to solve problems, to create great solutions, and to innovate if we just connect them and create the spaces for them to connect and collaborate and work together. A major theme will be growing the Vermont Creative Network, reaching out to additional networks around the state, hosting more events, and setting up channels that allow creative people to share resources, share solutions, and connect with each other. And last, it is about promoting Vermont as a creative hub, as the most creative state in the nation. The first step, though, is diversifying our Vermont brand and recognizing that it doesn't currently reflect and include the full diversity of people who live here. It's about developing marketing partnerships with other sectors and ensuring that at the statewide level and everywhere on down, we are promoting creativity as essential to Vermont's future. From there are so many possibilities for how this plan can be implemented, how we carry it forward, what action steps will make a difference. The next set of speakers will dive into many more of these in terms of what it actually looks like, but you will find in the plan an action framework that involves 3 main agendas, 3 sets of priorities for how we carry this forward, including a statewide advocacy agenda, the most important priorities and advocacy needs that can build the sector. A network agenda for developing the Vermont Creative Network and networking opportunities at the local and regional levels. And a local agenda for helping our local teams and communities make creativity thrive on every street corner, in every building, in every community around the state. You'll find opportunities for many, many different individuals and businesses, no matter who they are. So with that, we leave you with an invitation. First, to review the plan. You'll find it up at vermontcreativenetwork.org. We invite you to dive in, take a look, read, and send feedback. And before the final plan is even released, we invite you to start using it. Share the CreateVT plan, expand on it, use it to drive creativity and inspiration in your communities. Collaborate through the ideas that you see there and take risks with CreateVT. And above everything else, we invite you to simply walk out today and go create VT. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. It was very exciting. And to follow up Rebecca's unveiling of the plan, we've lined up a group of inspiring and talented folks for brief lightning round talks. They're going to reflect briefly on a particular vision statement that Rebecca just presented and how it interacts with their work and their own aspirations for Vermont. And so first up, we have Mr. Paul Costello, who is here. Here's Paul. Paul is the executive director of the Vermont Council on Rural Development, and he is a extremely gifted facilitator who helps Vermont communities create prosperous and sustainable futures. For over 20 years, he's been an incredibly enthusiastic champion and driver to create conversations about the power of a thriving creative economy in Vermont. Paul, thank you for making time for us today, and I'm going to turn it over to you for a lightning talk about the theme of arts, culture, and creativity as essential Vermont infrastructure. That's our first theme statement. Paul, it's all you.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm bound to disappoint now, but I'm really happy to be here and honored to follow the inspiratory thinking of so many others. To me, this is all about power. Arts, and let's not forget humanities as part of this. They have a power that's social, cultural, spiritual, economic, and it's the power for renewal. It's the power for uplift. It's the power that gives us resilience in our communities and in our souls. So I think about towns that we work with all across the state. I think of Barrie with the Granite Museum, Studio Place Arts, the Opera House, the Historical Society, Labor Hall, Library, St. Johnsbury with the Athenaeum, the Fairbanks Museum, Catamount Arts. We think of these things as byproducts to our prosperity, but actually they're the infrastructure and foundations for our downtowns. They're what build traffic. They're what have continuity. They exemplify our history, and they provide a sense of momentum. Think about towns like Vergennes with the Opera House, where that one project, renewing the Opera House, building a center of communal life, of excitement, of energy, built momentum for that downtown that walked down the block. Same thing in Bellows Falls, the leadership of Robert McBride, the redevelopment of Exner, the ability and connections that happen when artists lead, walked down the block and redeveloped what was a bombed out downtown square into a dynamic community center. That power you see everywhere. You see it in Brandon, and today you see it in Rutland. Creative placemaking builds the external brand, which is a reflection of our internal psychological identification. It's an atmosphere and a foundation for the sense of well-being, our quality of life, our connection to the land and place and people of our communities. So arts tell us, are we moving forward? Do we have momentum? They challenge us, and they form solutions that become part of the kind of collective consciousness of place. So art is inspirational, and it's the envisionment of momentum for our communities. At the same time, the arts spur and attract technology and creative entrepreneurism. We all want to be in a place that's happening and cool and exciting, and arts provides that. You think about Rutland today and all of the challenges that Rutland has around everything from the economy to how to address racial tensions within the community. You think about the Center Street Friday Night Live, the downtown arts movement, the arts and sculpture that's happening in that, the work to leverage a sense of community pride, which is fundamental to answering challenges as well as attracting new people to the future of that community. The arts in that place and in Vermont are providing an infrastructure of community dynamism and creativity. I often quote this one person because it made such an impression in my life. I met a woman, Claudia Stern, from Brazil, who had designed a roundabout in the center of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And 1 million people go by that roundabout a week. And that roundabout is a huge sundial with a steel beam that shines the light on letters that are around the rim. And the letters make up the word liberty in a place that has struggled to find democracy and work together as a progressive democracy in the world. And Claudia said, art creates emotion that produces citizenship. Arts provide the foundation for answering cultural challenges, from the galvanizing need to address and advance racial justice issues, to answering climate change, defining what democracy and patriotism will mean for us in the 21st century. So it's not a nicety, and it's not an add-on, it's actually the foundation for our communities and for the democratic way of life that we need to renew right now.
Paul, thank you. Very inspiring, and always appreciate shout outs to Rutland and Barre, two of my very favorite Vermont cities. Thank you, Paul. Next up, yes, Kelly's noting in the chat some great quotes from our speakers today, that this is not a nicety, this is a foundation for our communities. So thank you for leaving us with that, Paul. On the theme of Vermont communities thrive through creative expression and enterprise, I am thrilled to turn it over to Evie Lovett. Many of you may know Evie. She is a teaching artist and photographer. Much of her work has been in the area of documentary portraiture. And recently, she has been heavily involved in creating public art that is accessible to all and centered around community input and dialogue. Evie, take it away.
Thanks, Amy. Sharing my screen. So first I want to say hi, and that I'm coming to you from a place now called Putney, Vermont, in the unceded homeland of the Elnu Abenaki. And the Ask the River project that I'm going to talk about is, in order to explore this theme of thriving and art, is rooted in the Indigenous perspective that you are the place that you live. The place that you live is your family. And for us, that's the Quenichook, the Connecticut River Valley. And I just want to shout out to Rich Holshoe for encouraging us to listen to the river's voice. So in 2018, my art partners, Elizabeth Billings, Andy Wasserman, and I were about to take down this temporary kinetic sculpture that we'd installed in 2016 on the Brattleboro Transportation Center. It was part of an NEA-supported project called From the River to the River to support a closer connection between the town and the river. And we heard from folks that they liked it. They did not want this sculpture to go away, and it had shifted actually how they felt about the place, which is, you know, what we all hope and know that art can do. So that led to Ask the River. It started as a plan to create a larger, permanent river-inspired sculpture, and it grew exponentially to encompass immersive art-making workshops where community members created cyanotype postcards and these huge silk cyanotype banners, always with the river as guide. And then ahead in 2021, we have more workshops incorporating movement and plans for the choreographed unfurling of these banners through the streets of Brattleboro to the river, down the State House steps in Montpelier to the Winooski, working with wonderful choreographers, some, I think all of whom are on this call today, Erin Miley O'Keefe, Crystal Brown, and Ashley Hensel Browning. And perhaps most importantly, perhaps most importantly, Ask the River became a coalition. It became a joining together of people and organizations with shared values and objectives, which were respect for the river's voice, uplifting public spaces, and all of this through the power of art. We had help from many people, but shout out today to Rich Holshoe, Kathy Urfer from the Connecticut River Conservancy, Stephanie Bonin from the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance, and Danny Lichtenfeld from the Brattleboro Museum and Art Center. And as collaborators, we helped inform, energize, encourage each other. We joined together to secure grants. And then, you know, connections led to more connections and collaborations, and projects arose that might have seemed like diversions, but we sort of felt we're all kind of part of the same river. A pop-up event in the alley next to the parking garage, a Brattleboro Museum and Art Center exhibition, new river-themed wayfaring signs at the parking garage, and this December, another pop-up in the elevator of the parking garage. So Ask the River is still very much in flow. In 2021, the sculpture will be installed at the parking garage. And this fall, I hope all of you, and pass the word, will please join us and our fabulous movement artists to be part of these unfurling performances. So thank you.
Evie, thank you so much. That's such an inspiring example of the ways that Vermont communities can thrive through creative expression. I really appreciate your time. Now, our third theme is creative enterprises succeed in a diverse, equitable, connected, and collaborative environment. And I am thrilled to present Juniper Creative Arts, specifically Will Casso-Condry and Jennifer Herrera-Condry joining us today in their studio. Juniper Creative Arts is a Vermont-based Black and Dominican family collective that facilitates community mural projects with colleges and universities, K-12 schools, and community organizations. They are nationally recognized muralists, facilitators, and educators with a mission-driven practice of creating art that both involves and celebrates historically excluded communities. And I'll just say that Will and Jennifer, when we began our jam sessions last fall, Will and Jennifer were game to come on board and basically sit in on a very full, very long day and illustrate that day and what it means and thinking about the creative sector. And so the work that they created is the cover of our plan and is throughout. When you looked at Rebecca's slideshow, you see the work that they created has infused, has continued to infuse this plan and is illustrating this plan. So I think it's appropriate and fitting to have you all back. It's kind of full circle. So I will turn it over to you all to talk on this theme of creative enterprises succeeding in a diverse, equitable, connected, and collaborative environment. Take it away, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us, Amy. Well, we get right into it. Jennifer and I started collaborating back in 2017. At that time, we didn't think it would lead to what we're doing now, but we start setting the plan in motion for Juniper Creative, I say in the fall of 2019. And we established it in January 2020, a couple months before the pandemic. And that's when things started taking off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unfortunately, projects that we had lined up all got, canceled,
Yeah.
which gave us an opportunity to really just go in and build our business model and a plan for how we wanted to grow. Then obviously some really tense times occurred with George Floyd being murdered and a lot of uprisings and protests taking place, and a push for supporting more BIPOC businesses, BIPOC individuals. Wealth redistribution was taking place. That was such a big deal here in Vermont. And then we were like, whoa, what the hell just happened? We went from like, we're just gonna like quietly build and build. At this time, we're isolated, we're not out, we're just gonna do what we're gonna do. As an herbalist, I was making medicine and then sending it out to the front lines for free to people that were on the front lines. And then all of a sudden, sometime in the middle of the summer, we were getting calls and emails for people like, we want a mural. And we're like, oh, okay. now the mural projects are starting to like happen again.
But one of the first murals we did, which last summer coming into the fall, was the mural at Champlain Elementary. And what it has become a huge success. People talk about it all around the state. But what most people tend to forget is that mural almost didn't happen because of sheer racism. You know, and that's something that, you know, unfortunately, it was not the first time we encountered something like that. But Juniper and I are creative, so we're always looking for creative ways to deal with everything. And the one thing that we've never bent or buckled in was in our intention on making sure that we lead in BIPOC representation, specifically Black and Brown representation, you know, because that's what we are. So we never let it get us down to the point where we stopped. You know, we believe wholeheartedly that artists have a responsibility to tell the truth by any means necessary. And no matter what trials and tribulations you may go through, we've given that gift to communicate what the masses need to hear, and maybe not so much what they want to hear. And I think it was very difficult for predominantly white communities in the state to recognize BIPOC's influence on culture, even in the culture of Vermont, and how it's shifting. And we're just here to make sure that that story stays intact and integral. I mean, I don't know, we could talk, we keep talking.
We were told 3 minutes.
We were told 3 minutes, so.
And what you don't know is I had the pleasure of chatting with Juniper and Will last night. We talked for like an hour. And so I really appreciate that distillation of what this year has meant for you all, what it means to be a creative business. And as we think about supporting and building a more equitable and diverse range of creative businesses in this state. So thank you for all you do. And that was amazing. And now I am very pleased to turn it over to Karen Middleman, our wonderful executive director of the Vermont Arts Council, who's going to lay out the path forward. Karen, take it away.
Thank you, Amy. I am thrilled and really inspired to be here with you all. One of the things that we've spent a lot of time thinking about and talking with many of you about over the past few years is, what does Vermont look like if we place art, culture, and creativity right at the heart of our path forward? And what are the action steps? What does it take to get us there? And we've identified the paths for future action that you see on the screen. A statewide advocacy agenda to make sure that the sector has the resources that we need to move forward. A network agenda to keep you all connected and to empower new creatives to join us across Vermont. And a local agenda to empower and guide grassroots action. So let me take those one at a time. The advocacy agenda, here we're going to be focused on state level policies and legislation to get dedicated resources to the creative sector. And we have 4 key goals here. First, investing in our cultural infrastructure. This means investing in the downtown theaters, museums, libraries, and wonderful art spaces that are anchors for our communities. And in Vermont, so many of them are in aging historic buildings. The Vergennes Opera House that Paul mentioned is a great example. We're looking to expand existing grant programs and looking for other ways to support capital improvements that those essential anchor cultural organizations need. And we also need to fund the creation and the imagining of new cultural infrastructure, like the Ask the River project in Brattleboro's parking garage that we just heard about. The buildings and the places that enable the arts are essential for our experience of community and our connection to each other. Second goal under advocacy is promoting local creative economies. We need state level support and dedicated funding for local economic development and community development projects that are anchored in the arts. This might be a downtown food festival, a sculpture trail in a park or along a rail trail, any project that adds vibrancy to a community. The Better Places initiative that Sarah Coffey mentioned is a great example that would provide grants for community placemaking projects. We will continue to advocate for dedicated funding programs like Better Places, but also to look at other state funding opportunities and ensure that creative projects are considered high priority in all of our state grant programs. Third is investment in digital capacity. One of the greatest needs of all of our cultural organizations and creative businesses coming out of the pandemic is digital marketing skills and strategies for staying connected to audiences and to markets. We have a $1.15 million request into the legislature right now to provide training and grants to build digital capacity in the sector. And fourth, develop creative sector business skills. Besides digital skills, we will continue to connect artists and creative businesses to training and resources to build a whole range of professional skills, from fundraising and financial planning to project management and equity and diversity practices. So that's our advocacy agenda. The second bucket you see there, called network agenda, that's about building out the Vermont Creative Network. Making progress on any aspect of this plan really means building out the Vermont Creative Network and the capacity of the network to support a broader range of creatives. We need to grow and diversify our network. We need to think about creating space for those who have been left out, particularly in marginalized groups of creatives. We need to expand our networking and partnership opportunities. Those of you who've been part of one of our idea jams or online forums have already made great connections. I know of at least one film project and many other creative projects that have been sparked thanks to breakout and networking sessions. We're placing a really high priority on continuing to keep you all connected and provide you with the resources that you need for in regular communications channels, both on the zone level and on the statewide level. So look for an online resource hub soon. Measuring and sharing creative sector impacts is going to be a key part of our advocacy agenda. Successful advocacy really hinges on our being able to tell the stories of impact. So we're developing a creative sector monitoring and reporting plan. We plan to identify essential data points and especially to ensure that our data and our research is more inclusive. We're going to establish an annual report on the sector, a report out to all of you and to the legislature. And we're going to develop advocacy toolkits to help all of you share the data and stories of impact in your communities. This brings me to the final focus of our work, the local agenda. Statewide coordination and network building is critical, but progress is really going to happen on the local level, in the creative zones, on planning commissions, on town select boards, and in meetings around your kitchen tables. Or in the boardrooms of local nonprofits, creative businesses, and project teams. That's where change is really going to happen. Think about how powerful it would be if all of the creatives in your town or city got together. All the saxophone players, those town librarian, the painters, the poets, the dancers, the glass blowers, the local history or museum director, if all of you got together, and what a force you would be if you spoke with a single united voice. That's what all of the action items on our local agenda are all about. Building stronger zone teams, and I encourage you to join your zone team if you haven't already. Strengthening town plans and policies so that they can be strong forces for creative change. Making sure creative spaces and programs are accessible and welcoming to all. And finally, making creativity happen anywhere and everywhere. We often say that creativity is embedded in the DNA of Vermont communities. Imagine if every single Vermont town had a glassblower or a graphic designer or a theater director represented on their select board and their planning commission. This is the moment for us to lift up the power of our sector and recognize that creativity is needed on all levels for Vermont to move forward. With that in mind, I'm very happy to turn things over to a key member of our creative team, Chantalee Gander, an artist and curator who is going to wrap things up for us today.
And thank you, everyone. I want to thank our legislators who spoke and all of you. I keep saying to Dave and Rebecca, rock stars. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you. It's been awesome also working with Karen and Amy. I don't know, I'm gonna have some like extreme sadness now, because what are we gonna do with all these meetings? So I've been living in Vermont for about a decade, and there's something about here that invites people to take chances. What excites me most about this plan is the way that it feels like it is the spirit of this place in terms of stretching and in terms of taking a chance to place the creative at the center of all that we do. And to echo some of the words of Senator Ballant, when she said, we have the permission to not play small with this action plan, I think it is an invitation and an opportunity for us to move forward. For me, here has felt like a ready yes for partnership, for an idea to come together, to create, to make. I'm not saying that there isn't work to be done. In fact, there is. In fact, this is also the place that has been a masterclass on race that I did not realize I was missing, having grown up in Hartford, Connecticut. Given that, I see arts and humanities as the very things within our conscious and unconscious every day that will keep us honest. These avenues of our humanity are conveyors of culture, training our eyes in new ways and new ways of seeing, our hands and bodies bent into new being and doing if we open ourselves into it. As we enter into this new doing and being as it relates to all that is possible for what we envision and create, things are not always certain, as we won't know every step in front of us. And as we are doing, sometimes it will feel like we are sauntering instead of sprinting. But movement forward isn't about a race. It is building. It is relationships. It is the many conversations, the many that we've had with all of you and others who couldn't make it today. As we continue our movement forward, this plan represents going further into exploring what is known and journeying into the edges of new. We hold ourselves accountable and become the creative sector within a Vermont that reflects a depth of diversity, inclusivity, and equity that is not only skin color, but across class, across a range of lived experiences and histories that dwells within the very bones of the state. As we move forward, we engage with possibility and, most importantly, transparency. We invite all of you to support this plan for Create Vermont. We invite you to sign up and learn more about this exploration about creating Vermont. As we enter this phase of public comment, we will provide ways that all of you across the state will be able to formally endorse the plan, and different options for doing and creating in ways that best reflect your unique communities. I want to just emphasize, this is not a direct cookbook. As some of us who cook know, you add special ingredients along the way. And some of the best chefs don't always share their ingredients, but that's okay too. You do whatever works for your community with this plan, with this action plan. Make it yours. We'll have some opportunities for our creatives, our community leaders to strengthen and build their advocacy skills. We also want to invite this thought, because we've called this plan many things. We've used the metaphor of a sculpture, which that it is. It is very sentient. It is breathing. It is the mark of what is and what can be. And all of us, we are the ambassadors and the stewards of the possible. Out of sci-fi writer Octavia Butler's Parable of Talents, there's this quote that is applicable to what we are doing. In order to rise from its own ashes, a phoenix first must burn. In our burning towards transformation, it is a transformation that is about expansion rather than keeping to what was, or what is. The fire is in our death, but our bright burning into becoming and being, a becoming that demands nothing short of creating the space for inviting what is possible. And that can't be done without all of you and everyone who could not join us, who are essential to creating Vermont. As I close, I want to invite you to stay for the speed networking after our 5-minute break. I also want to invite you to think about the 6-word story about something you will do to help us create Vermont. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Shanta. We are at the end of our plenary session, plenary program, and we invite everyone to we'll take a brief break and join us for the one of the most popular things we did last fall, speed networking. So we will reconvene here at let's say 3:35 for our the optional speed networking sessions. Thank you all so much for coming, and we really look forward to your thoughts as you review the plan.